Hey, my name's Jacob, and so from one underpaid, overworked filmmaker to another, here's a bunch of tips and tricks that I've got from the film sets that I've worked on all shapes and sizes across the last few years. Let's get into it. Just quickly, in case you are in the same boat I was when I first started filmmaking, agreeing to a role that you'd never done before, overanalyzing it, and ultimately regretting saying yes, here's the basics of what the first AC does. Firstly, you are the focus puller, in charge of, as it sounds, making sure that the actors and the talent are perfectly in focus during the completely unnecessary and elongated exposition. Secondly, you're in charge of all of the crew and the gear and making sure that everything firstly arrives on set, but once it is on set, making sure that you set it up and then it's working as expected. Thirdly, and this is, I hope this works out for you, you're hopefully a part of a two-man team, being the first and the second AC. Together, you're in charge of changing the lens on the camera, making sure that the slate is marked and in focus so that when it happens to be in post-production, that all of the information there is in focus and able and easy to read. Fourthly, and most importantly, you are the cinematographer's go-to person. You need to make sure that if there is a dolly shot coming up 4 to 6 shots down the track, which might be 2 hours away, that the dolly shot is set up and that when the cinematographer says, all right, let's move over, that the dolly is there and waiting. So hopefully you would have a shot list at this point in time. I would say that it's super important that you memorize the shit out of that. The most beneficial part I found out of this role is that if you are that person who's thinking 3 to 4 shots ahead and that making sure that the dolly is set up, the cinematographer and by extension, the whole crew is going to be grateful to you. Which then actually leads on to my first real tip outside of the basics. Number 1, making sure you are that person who is on top of everything, that you've memorized the shot list, that you know all of the gear inside out, and that when someone says, hey, what's happening with this next shot? Is it a close-up? Is it a wide? What lens are we on? What's the aperture going to be? What's the lighting going to look like? That you know that and you can recall it instantly. Tip number 2. Make sure that you've memorized the shot list, or at least keep it on you at all times so that when the producer, when the editor, when the continuity assistant comes up to you and says, oh my God, what's going on? That you've got the shot list. I actually usually print out 3 because most of the time, especially on student sets and small film sets, people are going to forget that kind of stuff. And I know it's not necessarily our role to do that, but if you do it, you're going to make everyone's life so much easier. And then when they think, hey, who was that guy on that previous set who did a really good job? They're going to recall your name like that. Number 3, another tip that I cannot stress heavily enough is memorize the details of the camera. I remember being in a circumstance a few weeks ago where we were shooting on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K and the first AC hadn't checked any of the settings at that point. And it meant that when we were getting to the backups and getting ready to do all of the proxies for the project, everything had been shot in the Blackmagic RAW format, which means that every time that we wanted to bump out a proxy, we had to run it through DaVinci Resolve in order to do that, which isn't a problem because it's free, but we could have saved hours, possibly even days or weeks in post-production had the first AC simply looked in the settings and gone, let's not shoot in Blackmagic RAW, let's shoot in ProRes. Tip number 4, be over-prepared. And when I say that, I mean, even if you are a runner, bring tape. Bring a box cutter, bring scissors, bring highlighters, bring pens, bring pencils, bring spare sheets of paper. If you've got the shot list, print 3 of them. I know this sounds overkill, but a huge part of being on a small film set is networking. And when you are that person who has all of those things and the director turns around and says, who has a pen? And you go, bang, I've got a pen. And the director turns around and says, who has a shot list? And you go, bang, I have a shot list. Guess who they're going to think of the next time that they're shooting a project? Tip number 5. So branching off tip number 4, here's what I like to bring on set. I want to be bringing a box cutter. I want to be bringing at least three different types of tape. I usually take painter's tape, gaffer tape, and regular duct tape. I want to be bringing pens, pencils, scissors, anything that I can think of, a water-soluble marker that is going to make sure that I don't damage the focus ring on the side of the camera. Doesn't matter too much if you're pulling focus wirelessly because then you'll have your own gear for that, but these are just some of the things that I like to bring. Tip number 6. This one is going to be helpful for you not just on the film set, but in real life. You'll come across it time and time again. You'll see directors, cinematographers, even runners sometimes, who aren't willing to not just accept criticism, but aren't willing to be told that they're wrong. And this is so fundamental and so helpful just in being a human being that when you're told that you're wrong, you are given an opportunity to be successful and to succeed, because ultimately we don't have all of the knowledge. And even sometimes if we think we do, we're probably mistaken. So when it comes to being on set and someone says, hey man, why don't you try doing it like this? Just be open to it. Be open to the possibility of evolving. I remember being with a professional sound recorder recently who said that with the kind of people that he works with, they're willing to evolve, and those who aren't willing to evolve aren't working with him. And I think that's so important and so fundamental in your life and being on a film set. Tip number 7. This one's actually really cool, and someone showed it to me and it saved me so much time ever since. I'll make another video on how to tape down stuff on film sets because I actually think it's really cool, and just, you know, it feeds that little part of my anxiety in my brain. But when you get any type of tape, what you want to do is maybe the first 3 to 4 centimeters, you want to loop that back on itself and press it off. That way, when you pull it out, you cut it off, you tape it down, you then actually have like a little dog ear that you can just like pick up and then drag off. And that's fundamentally helpful when you're packing down on a film set and it's been allocated 5 minutes and you need to get all of the tape up and throw it in a bin, that you're not sitting there on the ground like trying to get your nail underneath it or a pocket knife or something like that. Just a cool little tip that's helped me so much. Tip number 8. Now, this is one that I think my uni actually taught me, and then when you get into the real film crew world, you find out that it doesn't actually operate that. So one of the important things in a film crew is the roll call, which essentially means everything leading up to the director saying action. And when you're in a film school or when you go to the university that I went to, they said that this is how the roll call goes, in that when the first AD is ready, they'll say, are we ready? Let's lock it off and do finals. Which is true, that does happen sometimes. But then what the university taught me was that they read through every single call, and I mean roll sound, rolling, roll camera, rolling, bring the slate in, wait for it, slate is in focus, call it, scene 1, shot 1, take 1, mark it. None of that really actually happens. And it's actually a really cool thing when you are on set, because you get to develop a synergy and you get to talk about with those people, all right, what do we want to do? How experienced is this crew? Can I just say turnover, roll sound? Which you'll find that if you are the first AC or first AD, you might actually end up doing sometimes. So just be, again, open to evolving and recognize that the roll call is different to than how you're taught sometimes. So those are my tips and tricks. I hope you guys have really gotten something out of this. I know that a lot of these things I wish I had gotten the first time that I got into filmmaking. If there are any others that I've missed, put them in the comments below. I'd love to check them out. Maybe I'll make a whole new second video with all these general tips and tricks about how to be on set. I mean, we do this because we love it. So please, as I said before, I'm open to evolving. Please tell me what I've done wrong. Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed the video.